He got his start on a TV show, The Apprentice. And we saw how entertaining it can be to fire people. But that's entertainment. That's not how you run an organization. And we have seen a performative effort to try to convince us that they're saving money. They're doing this in order to justify their plan for a $3.5 trillion tax cut for hedge fund managers, multinational corporations, and billionaires. But they're really not saving anything. And then yesterday we pass a budget resolution, and all my Republican colleagues are on Twitter or X, whatever they want to call it, saying that that resolution contains statutory language to say no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Well, what did Elon Musk have to say about that? Or what did his organization have to say? You know, they organized the readers' content comments to correct falsehoods that people put in their tweets. And every single time a Republican went up and said that that resolution hadn't eliminated taxes on tips, overtime, and Social Security, the Musk organization said, readers added context. None of the policies mentioned in this post were included in the House budget resolution. It does nothing to exempt tips, Social Security, or overtime, and we know they're not going to ultimately do that because they need the $4.5 trillion to provide tax breaks for hedge fund managers, multinational corporations, and billionaires. Now, government is frustrating. Frustrates me often, needs to be improved. You know what's also frustrating? Sometimes my computer's on the blink a little bit, and I just want to take a hammer and hit it up the side. You know, that makes me feel good, but it doesn't actually make the device work any better. And there are several techniques being used on the federal government that may make us feel good, but don't make it work any better. You see, you can fire people, and they are firing just about everybody in the government with less than 2 years of government service, the probationary employees. That destroys our future. Those are the people hired in 2024 that we're going to need in 2034. You know, the Dodgers are a pretty well-run organization, I think run better than government. Imagine if the Dodgers were going to fire everybody who joined, all the players that had joined in the last 2 years, just eliminate everybody in single A and double A ball. I would say that would make it they'd be worse than the White Sox. So you can fire people. You can also do the buyouts. They offered everybody in government a buyout. So who took the buyout? The people who could easily get another job elsewhere because they have very high capacity, and the people who are going to retire in the next year or two anyway, so why not get 8 months free vacation? And then they have the hiring freeze. Well, imagine if the Dodgers stopped signing new talent. Where would they be in the 2030s? You can also stop all research, and I'll get to an example of that. And then you argue, well, hey, if in 2026 they can say, hey, we saved all this money, and the research wouldn't have benefited you by 2026, but who is going to be dying from cancer and other diseases in the 2030s because of the research they're stopping now? And then they can do a whoopsie-daisy and say, oh, we stopped the research, oh, we started it again. No. You stop the research, and all those little white rats are dead. You can't start again. You got to start over the research. You can stop maintenance, and I'll get to an example of that. Saves you money unless you actually want things to work well. And again, we're told that there's just a government mulligan. They'll just do it over. Oopsie-daisy is not a way to run a multi-trillion-dollar organization. We're told that there's $50 million for condoms and $100 million for condoms in Gaza. And then they said, never mind, we got it wrong. We made a mistake. Oopsie-daisy. They decided to offer all of the air traffic controllers 8 months free pay for quitting. And then they say, oopsie daisy. And then today, Elon Musk tweets, there's a shortage of top-notch air traffic controllers. If you have retired but are open to returning to work, please consider to do so. He just gave them 8 months pay to stay home. Now he hopes they're going to come back. No, the fishing is good. The 8 months pay is guaranteed. But it's even worse. You see, not only did they give buyouts to the air traffic controllers, they have fired the navigational aid and maintenance personnel. So those air traffic controllers are going to be looking at empty screens, and those folks remain fired. What could go wrong? They also stopped our efforts against Ebola. Some of the charities were barely getting by. They've gone bankrupt. They've pulled their people out of Africa. And then he says, oopsie daisy, we're going to start that again. What a way to run a government. There are people who are going to get Ebola as a result of this oopsie daisy mistake. And that's another opportunity for Ebola inside a human being to mutate a little bit and then be a more pathogenic Ebola when it comes here. And then finally, they fired 300 people who were in charge of security of our nuclear weapons. Oopsie daisy, what could have gone wrong? And keep in mind, if you fire somebody and then hire them back or say you're going to fire them and you don't fire them, you say, oh, no harm, no foul, oopsie daisy. Nope. You see, once you do that to a person, their resume's on LinkedIn, they're looking for a new job. Nobody wants to stay with an employer if they have other opportunities, if that employer is teasing them about firing them, or worse yet, actually fired them and then got them back. So whom our best people will be leaving in the weeks to come, even if they hired them back. Now, there is real waste, fraud, and abuse in government. And this is an example. $200 million of our taxpayer money being spent on advertisements praising Donald Trump. How do they justify this? Well, they aim these at their own base to tell their own base, hey, Donald Trump is great, and here's a commercial to tell you that. But they claim that these ads are aimed at undocumented immigrants, and that somehow by watching a 30-second ad, the immigrants are going to say, oopsie daisy, I made a mistake. Venezuela really is better than California. I don't think so. There's nothing you can put in a 30-second ad that's going to cause somebody who's here to decide that they want to be back there. These are people who walked here from Venezuela. They went through the Darien Gap. They dealt with the forest. They dealt with the snakes. They dealt with the predators. They dealt with the drug dealers. They came into our country at great person. And they're going to see a 30-second ad praising Donald Trump and decide to walk back or even fly back? What a stupid excuse that is for the obvious election interference of spending $200 million taxpayer money on on ads praising Donald Trump. Well, let's look what's happening at the VA. They fired 2,000 people there. Oh, they're still hiring, but they're fired 2,000 people there. We have a nursing shortage. The nurses they've fired are going to find jobs elsewhere very quickly, and they're not going to get them back. The VA has stopped its clinical trials on cancer. So, even if you're not a veteran, you may be dying next decade because of the research that's not being done this decade. They're canceling operations. They're increasing the wait times at the VA, and they have fired the suicide crisis line counselors. There is veterans' blood on the hands of a man who never served his country. That's right, Elon Musk never served in the South African army.